Alright, welcome back, good people. On this video, I'm going to talk about anxiety disorders. These are some things I studied this week. I was doing research on health, and something that came across my mind was the amount of people who are mentally disturbed today. I mean, you see them walking down the street, talking to themselves, doing things that, that would actually, a person who's not that way would say that they're probably mad or insane or something like that, right? So my mind has always been to understand the psychology of people. So I do research on the way people think and the way they act and why they do that a lot of times. And all that is in line with the disorders or the phobias or the habits or the anxieties that people have. So I wanted to bring some of that to you guys. A lot of times when we're doing something as far as gaining information or gaining knowledge, it always sticks a little bit more when it comes from someone else, or when you hear it from someone that maybe you don't know, or maybe you do know, but you believe in what they're saying. You understand that they wouldn't bring you anything that's false or misleading or anything like that. They have nothing to gain for that, right? They're sharing information. Not always in their field, because what I do is my company teaches you how to start your own business online, right? And this year I'm doing 200 videos in 365 days. So I'm doing an abundance of knowledge gathering, just sharing information as I gather it. But why am I doing that? Well, because once I go out on the speaking circuit, I want to have plenty of information that I can, tap into, and I don't want you to be able to say too much that I can't, kind of be in line with, understand. So I'm positioning myself for the next level in my life, right? And hopefully you do the same thing as you're going through life, right? You're not just going through. Hopefully you're consciously planning to be someplace, or to do something, or to acquire something, right? That's how we're supposed to do it. We're not just supposed to go through life with our eyes closed and hope things go a certain way. No, that's not the way you do it. Because you control it. You control so much of it that it's incredible. It's you actually control all of it, right? Because the way you think, the things you do, the things you don't do, the things you should do that you don't do, all that matters in the big picture, in the big scheme of things. So people don't determine the type of person you are by what you say you're going to do. They do that by what you do. So you can talk all day long about what you would have done or what you're going to do. That's not what matters. What matters is what you did, right? And you only get one life, as far as we know. So what you're not doing right now, right, you probably won't get to do. All right, let me start this. Anxiety disorders. It says, what are anxiety disorders? Everyone experiences feelings of physical symptoms of stress when dealing with difficult situations or people. However, people with diagnosed anxiety disorder experience disability as a result of the response to stress. Untreated, their symptoms may often prevent them from engaging in social and family relationships, meeting job performance requirements, and participating in other daily activities. Now, you know those people, right? You may be related to those people. You may be one of those people, right? No judging. It's just that exists. That's all I'm trying to bring to you, is that world exists. And the more we can be understanding of it, the more compassionate we can be, the more understanding we'll be able to make adjustments if we're around that world, right? And we are around that world because it's everywhere. All right, continuing on, types of anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illnesses in the United States, affecting 40 million adults, or 18% of the population at any point in time. It says anxiety disorders include generalized anxiety disorders, or GAD. Generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, is the most common and widespread type of anxiety. GAD affects tens of millions of people throughout the world. GAD is best described as an ongoing state of mental and or physical tension and nervousness, either without a specific cause or without the ability to take a break from the anxiety. Is that you? If that's you, that's what you have, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder. Now that's the most common disorder that it talks about. Now, I believe that we all get anxiety for some reason. When I began speaking, I had extreme anxiety. I would just sweat. I couldn't control it initially, though, and because I wanted to do it so badly. I would sweat for about 5 minutes, and then I would stop, and then I'd be good. But I had to fight through that over and over and over, and I couldn't figure out why am I sweating like this. And that was anxiety. It was taking over, right? So you can kind of get that you can kind of line it up where you can get through that. But it still shows up. It's just that, I get better as I'm more comfortable doing what I do. Now, continuing on, it says, in other words, if you feel yourself constantly on edge, worried, anxious, or stressed, either physically or mentally, and it's disrupting your life, you may have generalized anxiety disorder. Now, the next one is social phobia. Many people suffer from what's known as social phobia, an irrational fear of social situations. Think about this. If you go into a crowded room, where do you position yourself? Do you go to the back? Do you go to the center? Or where do you position yourself to get your perspective on what's going on, right? A lot of people go straight to the front. A lot of people go directly to the back. Where do you position yourself? Kind of in the center? Or, you have to think about that because it's a habit that you have established, right? Why do you do that? The next one is panic disorder. It says, panic disorder is a debilitating anxiety disorder that is very different from GAD. Panic disorder is not about panicking. I didn't know that. Did you know that? It says panic disorder is when you experience severe feelings of doom that cause both mental and physical symptoms that can be so intense that some people become hospitalized, worried that something is dangerously wrong with their health. Isn't that something? See, these are disorders, and when you are experiencing one of those, regardless of whether or not the situation is as you perceive it, your body is reacting to it as if it was, right? So you got to understand that that's real for a lot of people. Next we have agoraphobic. Agoraphobic is the fear of going in public. It's going out in public. Agoraphobic is the fear of going out in public. Either the fear of open spaces or the fear of being in unfamiliar places. See, these things always help me when I remember the definition of them. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. So agoraphobic, I didn't know that was the fear of going out in public. Agoraphobic. Think about that. There are people who fear going out in public. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Phobias. Phobias are intense feelings of fear because of objects, scenarios, animals, etc. It says phobias generally bring out disaster. Phobias generally bring about disaster thinking, believing that the worst will happen, or avoidance behaviors, doing whatever it takes to avoid the phobia. Now that makes sense. That does make sense right there. After that, we have post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. As the name implies, PTSD is an anxiety disorder that comes after the traumatic event has occurred. Those living with PTSD often must get outside help because PTSD can affect people for years after the event occurs, possibly even the rest of their life. PTSD affects people both psychologically and physically. And in most cases, the person with PTSD is the one that experienced the traumatic event. But it's possible to get PTSD by simply witnessing an event or injury, or even simply discovering that someone close to you dealt with a traumatic event. You understand that? I didn't know that. Now what I'm seeing is that there are levels of PTSD, because I'm certain, I don't know for 100%, but it only makes sense that the person who went through that would have a higher level of PTSD than the person who just heard about it, right? But maybe not, because of the way our systems are, the way we are chemically built, right? Some things affect people differently. Sometimes the fear of something is more intense to a person who's not in that situation than the person who actually went through it, right? All right, following that we have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD, can be a very destructive anxiety disorder. Those with OCD often exhibit behaviors and fears that are not only confusing to those around you, they may be confusing to the person with OCD as well. Compulsions and obsessions are similar but exhibit themselves in different ways. Obsessions are thought-based. They are preoccupation with a specific thought, usually a negative or fearful thought that a person simply cannot shake or no matter how hard they try. Then you have the compulsion. Compulsion are behavior-based. They're a need to perform an action or activity, often in a very specific way. And as hard as the person tries, they can't stop themselves from performing the behavior. Anxiety disorders frequently concur with depressive disorders or substance misuse. And some people are diagnosed with more than one type of anxiety disorder concurrently. That's incredible, right? So you think about all those people going around this planet that we're all on with those type of issues. And they look just like you and I in many cases, right? As a matter of fact, it may be you or I in many cases. But, I know a lot of times I take things for granted when I'm not understanding or haven't been exposed to it. And after I'm exposed to it, my compassion level rises. I become empathetic with people who walk that path in life, because that's, it's hard enough to be, what we would consider normal or stable, right, balanced, and go through life. You can imagine what it's like with that process working. Okay, the final thing I'm going to share with you today is it says, it's normal to feel anxious when facing challenging situations, such as job interviews, a tough exam, or a blind date. But if your worries and fears seem overwhelming and interfere with your daily life, you may be suffering from anxiety disorders. There are many different types of anxiety disorders and many effective treatments and coping strategies. Once you understand your anxiety disorder, there are steps you can take to reduce your symptoms and regain control of your life. The experience of an anxiety disorder or panic attack may look and feel different from person to person. So just because one person exhibits this type of anxiety or response to an anxiety doesn't mean that everyone's going to do that. Now, some of the symptoms of anxiety disorder include stomach pains, including indigestion, gas and bloating, abdominal cramps and pains, and irritable bowel syndrome. Difficulty breathing, including a choking sensation, hyperventilation, asthma attacks, and coughing fits. Negative thoughts, including anticipating danger and catastrophe around every corner, frequent feelings of inadequacy or impending failure, or believing that something bad will happen if certain things aren't done a certain way. Feelings of worry, which can result in edginess and physical trembling or shaking, heart and chest pain, low appetite or binge eating, insomnia, feeling detached or unreal. Now, the final causes and triggers of anxiety are anxiety disorders can be caused by the interaction of genetics and environmental triggers, including stress from traumatic events, medical conditions, relationships, academic or professional performance expectations, and unhealthy lifestyles. Now, some examples of common triggers of anxiety disorder include stress from a personal relationship, a job, or finances, childhood trauma or recent traumatic event, side effects of a prescribed medicine, accompanying symptoms of a related illness like depression or borderline personality disorder, stress from an underlying medical condition, expectation for achieving at school or work, and finally, lack of sleep, exercise, and healthy eating. These are all in line with disorders. And if you're around somebody and you are watching them, you are close enough to them where you can watch, their mannerisms and what they're doing, and you're able to notice that someone is kind of pulling away or, not wanting to be exposed or not want to talk or, things like that. That's something happening within that person. And pay close attention to that. And, if you can't help that person, get that person some help or get someone to identify that person is going through that. Because, the world we live in is really kind of like, everybody just kind of stands back, take a picture, right? All right, I'm going to continue more on health this week with disorders, anxieties, fear, and all that good stuff. So I hope you learned something from that. And remember, this is what my objective with creating these videos is. To get you to understand that you can do this same thing. You can do exactly what I'm doing. It takes nothing but practice. It helps me get better at reading. It helps me get better at understanding things like disorders. It helps me to know and be more well-rounded, right? And then I'm creating something that you can learn from. But it's based on what I enjoy doing. Just like what you would be doing. You would be basing things on what you enjoy doing. And how cool would that be? Especially once you start to make money. Come on now, you're making money with this. Like these videos, share these videos, and I'll see you when? Right, on the next video.